Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Ketuo KT Triad, designed by FD Design. I am unfamiliar with FD Design, but I wanted to make sure and get that information out right away so you guys knew. Thanks so much to Ketuo for sending this knife in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife should be available. If you're watching this like near the time that I release the video, then it should be available for you to check out if you want to. It does help my channel when you use those links right down in the description, which is where this is linked. So yeah, if you want to, great. If not, that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this knife. No matter how many times I do that intro, I still screw it up sometimes. By the way, no, Triad does not mean it has the Triad lock. I have a feeling that's going to ruffle some people's feathers. I don't know why. I just feel like what I know about Cold Steel Triad lock fans has me bracing for impact, but I mean, okay. It's, I think, more so referring to the means, like the number of different deployments. But this is not, it's suggested to be the same strength. Don't worry. Nobody's challenging the power of the Cold Steel Triad lock. You can put your pitchforks down. Let's go ahead and get a measurement here. The overall length surprisingly comes in at only 7.5 inches. It really does feel like a larger knife than that, but 7.5 inches. Blade length coming in about 3.25. Cutting edge is coming in at about 2.85 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found in the description under original goat and others. So you can see here up against the 8010 and the 8020.5, it's actually much closer to the size of the 8020.5. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Again, much closer to the size of the Para 3, only a 1/4 inch longer, quite a bit more cutting edge, and actually, I think the cutting edge is almost identical, just slightly shorter than the PM2. And then finally, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca, close to the size of the Hogue Deca. How is the action? It looks like a pretty fidgety knife. It is. The thumb studs work really well. The button lock works really well. The rear flipper is pretty good. It's more of a light switchy. If you try to button lock or push button flip it, it's not going to work. The front flipper also works, and you can reverse flick it with just a bit of dig on the finger. It really is a fidgety knife, right? Now, right on the website, the designer acknowledges, he says, hey, button locks aren't as strong as like liner locks or frame locks even. You know, I just like them. It proves to be a dependable, you know, tool. And I would say as long as you use your tools correctly. On this channel, as long as it survives what I call a triple tap, I'm fine with it. I don't need to put more into that, you know, personally, because I most of the time put the pressure here. But occasionally, right, while you're cutting or twisting or whatever, some, you know, unintentional pressure can be put on the spine. And as long as it's able to withstand that, both in terms of pressure and also with just a couple of taps, I'm okay with that, right? If you need something stronger, perhaps you should look at the Triad. I'm kidding. But it depends on what you expect from your knife, right? So do with that information what you will. But the action is good, and the lockup is reliable. I will point out, though, that this does have a little bit of play. And in the past, and that's up and down, by the way, in the past, it was like every button lock I handled, it didn't matter what company, China, USA, right? Yeah, they all had them. And then slowly they started to not have them. A lot of button locks from Civivi started to get like super duper solid. So maybe it's just this one, or maybe they're all like this, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's no left or right play, but there's a little teeny tiny bit of up and down movement. So just be aware of that. It apparently is not affecting the lockup, though. The geometry of the plunge lock seems to be good enough to withstand the triple tap. So anyways, let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see here it's slightly thicker, but well, we don't have contouring. It's just like heavy chamfering, right? And it kind of, because of the areas, right, each angle's, even, it kind of gives that impression. So it ends up, you end up with a very comfortable knife for sure. But just maybe slightly thicker than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. We have a body length that's a little longer than the Para 3, a little shorter than the PM2, not quite as tall as either. Honestly, in and out of the pocket, this just wasn't an issue for me at all. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down there in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So we have a T8 pivot, and then the rest of these body screws are T6 right here, and then these here. And this is holding in the filler tab, which obviously you can use to flip the pocket clip over for left-handed carry. It shouldn't be that hard to take apart. I mean, T6, I don't like it, but hey, there's not a ton of them. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. So there's the blade stock thickness, and then we're going to weigh it. I know I'm doing things a little bit out of order here. Blade stock thickness, not a thick blade for sure. We're coming in at 112 thousandths or so. So quite thin. Weight, what are we looking at for materials? We have, looks like some sort of blasted, maybe like a, it's kind of similar to like Wee's glass blasting. It's not quite as dull as like a regular bead blasting, like what you'd see on a Gerber paraframe. Oh, I'm sorry. Whenever I say Gerber paraframe, I throw up multiple times in my mouth. But let's go ahead and weigh it here. We have M390, we have some shred carbon fiber, and then actually, for the scales, use the magnet here real quick. These are titanium scales and a titanium backspacer. So there you go. The weight on this guy is 3.25 ounces, which doesn't surprise me at all. It's a pretty darn good ratio there of blade length to weight. So, by the way, their M390 is listed as coming in at 59 to 61 Rockwell, which is the industry standard. I understand that that's not perfectly optimal, but at least they are hitting that standard that we see through everybody. I always say my opinion on this, and it is just an opinion as somebody who is not a metallurgist, doesn't have proper Rockwell hardness testing equipment. I don't make knives. I don't go out and professionally test knives. I am not a scientist. I am a professional of absolutely nothing. As someone who reads Google and handles a lot of knives, personally, I think anything below 60 is not very good for M390. 59, it makes me a little sad. 58 is an absolute joke, and that makes me laugh very hard. That makes me chuckle to myself that anybody would do that, but okay. But you can think however you want. This is the information that's presented on their website, 59 to 61, so there you go. Meat and potatoes time. Ergonomically, this is a very comfortable knife. We've got lots of jimping extending out here. Way out here, just almost the halfway point of the blade. Shred carbon fiber is a type of carbon fiber that usually results in there being a lot of voids. And there's some here and there, but it's not terrible. I mean, this is just like the nature of the beast with this stuff. So personally, I don't love shred carbon fiber because I don't like looking at voids. But as is the case with pretty much any carbon fiber, there is a potential for it to be there. So if you don't care, I mean, do those voids hurt the knife? No. It's just kind of like something that people don't like to look at when they're combing over their brand new super expensive knife with a magnifying glass. So there you go. Fit and finish, on the other hand, is very, very good. Fitment, seating of the hardware, everything is really nice. No surprise there. The button does not have an enormous amount of travel. It doesn't have any crunch or stick or anything like that. The bounce on the blade is very metallic. Like when it connects to the closed position stop pin, it's got a very metallic sound. It's kind of satisfying. The thumb studs on this knife are super well designed, and it makes it super easy to deploy. Comfortable to hold. You can choke up on it. It's got a little harpoon notch. The blade is a compound grind, so we have a huge, very elongated hollow grind. So the thinness behind the edge is, oh man, it's nice and thin behind the edge. It does actually change angles here. So if you're going to use this knife over time, just understand that little angle there, you're going to round that out, right? thicker out here, but as it's stated on the website, the knife isn't really like, he knows that it's not supposed to be like something that you use for batoning logs in half, which I just don't understand why we even still see people testing things that way. Even the most robust of pocket knives, it's still a stupid tool to use for that. Like, why would you not use the appropriate tool? But you're gonna get people questioning it either way. You just are, because it's the internet, right? Whatever. The knife will definitely handle knife tasks. It's a little bit more robust out at the tip. So I guess if you're doing, if you're getting a little frisky with your knife there, then at least the tip is a little more robust for that. I kind of like the way that the opening hole is shaped. It's neat. We've seen this blade profile a million times, but it's all right. It says Triad and M390 right here. We have the designer logo right there, and then nothing really on the other side. That's pretty much it. A little bit designy on the pivot. I have to imagine that is specific to the name Triad, because we have 3 different prongs, I guess, on the pivot. Maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Either way, it's cool. We have the designer logo also carved into the carbon fiber on this side, which I think is fine. It's not really hurting anything. Backspacer are kind of interesting. It's just got like rows of jimping on either side and a fuller milled right through the middle of it. Big open area for a lanyard. That's a cool way to do that. It's cool. It looks like it sort of goes with the knife, right? The whole knife looks like it's a continuous theme. That's something that I always look for. Like it or hate it, what bothers me the most is when there's like a certain theme for the handle and it doesn't translate to the blade, or it just doesn't go together. Everything seems to go together, so that's nice, right? I feel like I have reviewed 50 knives that have a similar profile. I will admit, the unique characteristic here is that this knife will deploy pretty much however you want to deploy it. And while that in and of itself is not completely and totally unique in the idea, we definitely have a lot of knives out there that are button lock, thumb stud, thumb hole, flipper, front flipper, right? That idea has been tackled before. We don't see it all the time. So that is cool. And in my opinion, this takes a more handsome form, right? So there you go. Do what you will with that opinion. The clip is probably the one thing that, it's fine. It's functional. It's just the one thing that doesn't, it's a basic clip that can essentially go with any design. I wish they would have done something with the pocket clip that's more like how the backspacer is. I think that would have looked cool, but it's okay that it's not. It says Ketuo on the clip. In and out of the pocket. The retention on the clip is very good. It's a titanium clip. We have a nice ramp under the clip, so it works. Left or right-handed people, you can enjoy this knife. Lefties, it's like I always say, with a right-handed button lock, you have to be careful with button locks that allow choke-up positions, because while you're choking up on it, that button is in the pad of your index finger, which means if you squeeze hard enough, guess what? You're going to disengage the blade. If you are right-handed when you're choking up, usually your index finger or no part of your hand naturally falls on top of that button, which means you can squeeze pretty much as hard as you want and nothing's going to happen. Right-handed or left-handed, obviously you should still be cognizant of what's happening, but left-handed people, you really are kind of limited unless you're going to be really careful about keeping your pad off of that finger. Your pad off of that button. You're kind of limited back here if you're really going to go at it. If you're going to really, you get hardcore heavy metal cardboard breakdown session, right? Just be aware of that, right? That's all I'm saying. I don't like the idea of people having to go to the hospital and paying more for stitches than they did the knife. Anyways, lockup, we already talked about that. No left and right, a little bit up and down. Maybe I just got a funky one. Pivot lash, absolutely nothing. Super smooth and consistent in here, it runs on bearings. The detent is, it's the plunge lock acting as the detent, so it's not the most satisfying feeling, but it holds the blade into place. There's a fuller, this wraparound backspacer has a fuller in it, so it's really highlighting whether or not the blade is center. It's always a risky move, but that blade is center, so nice work there. This is a cool knife, comes in at $215. It's fine. It's not, honestly, I don't like feeling up and down play. I feel like in 2024, we should have that completely worked out. Now, I acknowledge that I could have gotten a weird one. I I don't know. Ketuo has had some stuff that's just been phenomenally priced. There are companies out there who are making similar things, and they're manufactured in China, like this knife, and they're coming in much less expensive. I mean, Kaiser, for example, is bringing essentially the same level of quality to the table for $170, $185, definitely under $200. There are companies delivering $215 knives that are made in China, because you can't make this in the, like, I know people are like, it should be made in the USA, and it's not. It's going to be way more money to do this in the USA, right? So it's just, you gotta let go of that. It's just not true anymore. Maybe it was 15 years ago, but it's not true anymore. You just can't do it. You can't do a knife like this in the USA for under 200. Not with these materials. So, but anyways, I'm not super impressed with a $215 price tag. $215, like this territory, $200 to $250. Holy moly, you can get a phenomenal knife at that price. So it's okay. The design itself is fine. It'll work just fine as a pocket knife. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of underwhelming. I've seen the profile a million times before. But hey, listen, if you like this, assuming that I got a weird one with the blade play situation, then, go ahead. The lock is solid enough, in my estimates. And they're at least hitting that industry standard Rockwell hardness. So it's okay. Not my favorite thing in the whole world. I'm not going to be putting it on any particular playlists, but, if it's the knife for you, I think it's good enough. That's going to be pretty much it for me today. Thanks again to Ketuo for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.